Hello, and welcome to my 31st October. I'm Lucky27, and this is a series of stories I have often told about my life. Today's story is entitled Crafting Ghosts. Today I'm going to talk about the ghosts I can remember from a job I had. Now, nearly all of my jobs have, at some time or another, had strange things happen that could have been supernatural in nature. But I can think of only 2 jobs that I've had where the sightings were confirmed or it was shared experiences. One of these jobs was a fabric and crafts superstore that I worked at. In the beginning, nothing of note really happened. But then I was moved to a stocking shift from 2 a.m. until 10 a.m., 5 days a week for about 8 months, and that was when things began to kick off. First, I need to explain something. As I've stated in previous videos, I have been seeing things since I was a baby. However, when I was 4 or 5 years old, my grandmother had grown tired of me interacting with things that she couldn't see and told me that if I continued to make up stories and lie about people being there when they clearly were not, that I would be severely punished. So I did my best to ignore anything or anybody I thought others might not be able to see. Most people thought I was shy, but the reality was that I would wait to talk with someone until I saw someone else talk to them, to make sure they were real. Around the time my husband and I moved in with each other, I started seeing things again. Not people, mind you, just things. I would keep it to myself until my husband would say, "Did you see that too?" Or, "I know you saw that." He was the one who really helped me to remember my gifts, and to open me back up by confirming things to me when I would come to him and tell him that I saw or felt something. So, by the time I started seeing things at work, I had only really been open to it for maybe a year or 2. The reality of it actually is it started to take off around the time my grandmother died. A few months after she passed away, I was walking home from work, and I literally walked through her. I didn't see her, but I could smell her. She had a very distinct smell that I would know anywhere. It was a mix of Avon colognes and a perfume called Ming Xiu. That was her smell. The wind was blowing around quite forcefully that day, so I was surprised that the smell stayed in the same spot as I circled around it to try and figure out where the scent had come from. There was nobody else around me, and there were no objects on the ground that could account for the smell. It lingered for at least 2 minutes while I walked in and out of it. It was at about my grandmother's height, and the space it took up was about her size. And then it was gone. I called my mother, shaken up as I was, and told her that I thought that Grandma had just popped in to say hi while I walked home. She said that that wouldn't surprise her, since I was the only one in the family that wouldn't tell her to F off the second she showed up. Well, she did mention how it must be ironic for my grandmother, since she was the one that threatened me into trying to turn off my abilities, and she was now relying on them to communicate with me. After that was when I really started to notice things. The first time I noticed anything at work was the White Lady. As I said, I was working stocking shifts and usually had a CD Walkman with me while I worked so I could listen to music and stay focused. Anyways, as anyone who has ever worked as a stalker would know, there are spots for overstock. In the store there were sections in the back rooms for overstock, but there were also high shelves on the walls of the store that could be accessed by ladders. On one of these shelves over the books in the quilting section were large rotary sets that had a rotary cutter and a huge rotary mat in them. They were too big to fit in the back rooms, so they had them on these shelves. Now, I had never personally needed to go up there, so I didn't notice that this shelf didn't have what we called a gate in front of it. A gate was a little fence that you could pop into the holes of the shelf so that the merchandise wouldn't fall off the shelf and hurt the customers. On this day, I was stocking things in the quilting section. I passed underneath the section where the mats were being stored when one, and only one, came crashing down onto the floor right behind me. I mean, I felt the breeze of it. That's how close it was to hitting me. At the time, I didn't think anything supernatural had happened. I had quite the fright, but I was glad it had happened to me and not a customer, since they would do nothing but complain, and all I did was grab a gate and put it and the mat back on the shelf. It was weird that only one had fallen, since they were positioned in such a way that if one fell, the others should have come down with it. But I just went back to my work. As I was getting off work that morning at 10 a.m., I noticed our doll-making instructor, who was always set up in the quilting section, was chuckling to herself as I was walking past her to clock out and leave. She and I had a friendly relationship up to that point, but had never really talked much outside of, "Hello, how are you? What new doll have you made now?" and the like. That day, she stopped me in my tracks by saying, "Had a bit of a scare this morning, didn't you?" I walked over to her and asked her what she meant, and she pointed to the mats on the shelf. I asked her how she knew about that, and she told me that the white lady had told her. I asked, "What white lady?" And she said, "The one that likes to watch you while you work." Then she said, "She's been trying to catch your eye for a while now, but even though she's sure you've seen her, you don't stop and talk to her. So she dropped the mat behind you so you'd pay attention. But you didn't react the way she thought you would." I asked who she was and was told that she was just a ghost that liked to hang out around the store for no real reason. She didn't die in the store, nor did she have any connection with anyone who worked there. She just liked it there. Except for the paper crafting section. The brown lady was in that part of the store, and the white lady didn't like her very much. Then she smiled at me and said, "I know you've seen her. She's told me several times how you've noticed her when you're in that area." And she wasn't wrong. I had seen brown flashes around corners when I stalked in that area, but I didn't think it was a ghost. I asked why they were talking to her about appearing to me, and she shrugged her shoulders and said, "You seem to be the only other one around here that can see them, except for me. They get bored sometimes too, you know." I told her that nearly hurting me with the rotary mat wasn't funny, and that I wouldn't be paying attention to the white lady if she continued to do stuff like that, to which I was told that she promised she wasn't going to do anything like that again. The doll lady and I, yes, I do remember her name, I just want to be respectful and not say it, talked a bit about her gifts and mine. She was much, much stronger in her gift than I could ever hope to be, but I'm also glad I wasn't burdened with it like she is. Ghosts would hound her all hours of the day to get their messages through to their loved ones, and I'm happy to not deal with that, thank you. She told me not to be afraid of my gifts, and to just understand one thing. They can only hurt you if you let them. I joked that I couldn't have stopped the white lady from dropping that mat on me, and she told me that I had guardians that would never have allowed that to happen. I saw the white lady several times after that, as well as the brown lady. The doll lady and I became friends, and life went on. Almost weekly she had more to tell me about one thing or another, and I was thankful for the help and the stories. Then we got a new manager. Not the store manager, mind you, but she and another manager of ours had traded stores so that he could go run her store, and this new manager took his place. She had been an auditor for the company, so she was grossly unpopular since she had the personality of a hippopotamus. This woman overheard me at one time telling coworkers about the white lady and the brown lady fighting over who got to be in the kids section, when she interrupted me and told me that she was afraid of ghosts and she didn't want to hear anything more about ghosts in the store. The next time I saw the doll lady, she told me to tell the new manager that Bess had followed her to our store and was keeping an eye on her. Now, she volunteered this information. I didn't say anything about the manager having talked to me about, not talking about ghosts. So, I already knew where she got the information. But I asked her who Bess was, and I was told that she had worked at the other store with the new manager, and that she had had a stroke or a heart attack and had fallen off of one of the ladders, then later died. So the next time I was in the break room with that particular manager, I asked her who Bess was. Her face went pale, and she asked me how I knew about Bess. And I told her what the doll lady had told me to tell her, and she ran out of the room while I laughed to myself. No, I don't feel bad. She wasn't a nice person. Later, I was roped into doing a paper crafting pog change, where we spent 3 nights rearranging and relabeling everything in the paper crafting section. As you may remember, that's the brown ladies section. Now, this particular manager was the manager who was overseeing us. We worked from midnight until 8 a.m. those nights. One night, after the manager had gotten upset with us for not clocking out for our lunch on time the night before because she hadn't told us to go, I decided to get even with her. I told the others that night that we should all go to lunch at the same time without telling the manager. Then I waited until she was an aisle away from the rest of us and began to tell the others about the brown lady not being happy about the changes to her section. We then all left her there, alone, and went to lunch. It took her a few minutes to figure out that we were all gone. Then we all heard her screaming all the way from the break room. She ran in moments later, out of breath and terrified. She yelled at us for leaving her alone with the ghosts, and I brought up that we were just doing what she had told us to do by going to lunch before our 5 hours. Needless to say, she stayed glued to us after that. I wasn't sad to leave that store, but I was sad to leave the doll lady and the ghosts. Since the doll lady was in her 60s when I left a dozen years ago, my guess is she may just be a ghost now herself. If so, I would never be bothered if she wanted to come and see me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the journey. I'm not sure how often I'll be posting something here, so leave a like, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get updated when I do post. If you have questions or want to know more about something I've said, leave a comment and maybe I'll make a video explanation on the subject. But please be polite and courteous with the comments. My feelings don't get hurt, but the world has enough hate and judgment in it. It doesn't need yours on this video. If you think you know who I am, please don't leave a comment guessing my identity. Just send me an email at the address in the description box. Thanks again, and I'll see you when I see you.